military stockpiles are dwindling, but now we are getting more information about just how bad they are dwindling. I want you to listen to John Kirby. Again, he is the National Security Council spokesperson now. Used to be at the Pentagon. Now he's at the White House.
We're working very closely with the defense industry to try to ramp up production, particularly for artillery shells. You saw that we gave some cluster munitions to Ukraine as a bridging solution here while we ramp up production. We're having very, very strong conversations with the defense industry, and we believe that we'll be able to get there. But there is going to have to be some production rate increases, no question about it.
So there's going to need to be production rate increases. But then, Logan, we go to retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gaffe said that through his sources, this is a Fox News article, I'm being told it's going to take us 10 to 15 years to recover from everything we've shipped over just to Ukraine. 10 to 15 years. You know who loves that? China, who's looking at invading Taiwan, Russia, knowing that they're basically depleting our weapon sources, and Iran. Yeah. And basically any of our world enemies.
I'm very nervous because you hear that kind of thing that it's going to take 10 to 15 years to recover, and we're trying to ramp up our creation of weapons and artillery, and we can't necessarily meet the demand, and it really all has to do with what we're sending to Ukraine.
When they admit to us that we are depleted, that we could not sustain a ground force to protect our own citizens and our own interests and our other allies in the world, then we have done something very wrong in the planning of Ukraine. It is why so many have said Joe Biden is the worst when it comes to foreign policy. That comes from Democrats, from the Obama administration. He is the worst. Every decision he makes was the worst decision to make when it came to foreign policy. He didn't want to go after bin Laden. He told President Obama not to do that raid. I mean, this is the guy who's been on the wrong side of foreign policy every single time. But see, now he's in charge. And look at the mess we are in.
It's not like we haven't been through a real ground war in our lifetime or something like that. This is continual. So why we get to this point is insane. And why we get to this point over the situation that's at hand is really disturbing. And I think when you read these quotes, it's not like this is just coming from conservative media or whoever it is. This is coming from leading officials and Kirby saying, yeah, we're working very closely to ramp up production. That tells you what? That we are down. That things are not quite what they were, that we are running low. And when you see the demand, I think one of the numbers on here, this was from a report from Business Insider. It said in January, the U.S. military said it aimed to increase productions from 14,000, this is for standard round ammunition, from 14,000 a month to 90,000 by 2025, you said. But they said that's not enough to keep up with the demand because Ukraine forces have been using up to 240,000 every 30 days.
Don't you want to live in the strongest country in the world? Don't you want to live in that America where we put our needs first, our concerns first, but in fact, by doing that, we help others? Because a strong America makes us stronger democracies around the world, makes a safer world, a much safer world. We all see that. See the less conflict under Trump and the extreme conflict under Obama and under Biden. ISIS, the terrorism leads, the fall of all those, the Arab Spring, which turned into a terrorist spring. All of that happened under Democrats because our military wasn't given the resources they needed to get the job done. And they love going around acting like they're the world's policemen, but they deplete our own resources. And that is something we cannot accept in the United States. The more we learn about it, the more dangerous this is to our country, to our children, to our grandchildren. I don't want my kids, and the numbers they're talking about, my kids will be teenagers by the time they're talking about this, us having enough weapons to sustain a ground war. That is unacceptable. You know, I've got kindergartners, 2 and 3-year-olds. It should not take another 15 years before the U.S. could sustain a ground war. That's not a safe country for my children.
These are the topics that never get attention, and I wish they would, because these are the ones that actually affect our nation security and national security as a whole, and all of the things that go with it. But we always get stuck and hung up on sort of these controversial, kind of ridiculous issues that get thrown around from the right, thrown around from the left, and we don't actually get down to the meat of things. Like, we'll forget about the Supreme Court, we'll forget about Islamic extremism and what's going on in the Middle East, and then we'll forget about something like this, which is our military, and make sure they have proper equipment and proper planning to, if a conflict arises.
The Department of Defense just announced another $800 million for Ukraine. That brings the total to $95 billion dollars that we have spent. So not only are we depleting our money, we're depleting our ammunitions. We have to think, why are we never talking about how to bring this to an end?